The journey to the hidden outpost was tense but uneventful. For 3 days, the Zora traveled through the vast emptiness of space, its repaired engines humming steadily. Ethan spent much of his time in the central chamber with Kale and the crew, learning more about their culture and sharing stories of Earth. Despite their differences, they found common ground in their shared desire for peace and survival. On the 4th day, the outpost came into view, a sprawling structure nestled within the shadow of a massive asteroid. Its design was a blend of organic curves and metallic structures, similar to the Zora, but larger and more fortified. Lights glowed softly along its surface, giving it an almost welcoming appearance. Kale guided the ship toward a docking bay, where they were greeted by representatives of the outpost's inhabitants. These beings varied widely in appearance. Some tall and slender like the Zorath crew, others shorter and stouter, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. They communicated telepathically, their voices calm and measured. "Welcome," one of them said, stepping forward. "We have been expecting you." Kale inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you for granting us sanctuary. We are grateful." The representative nodded. "Word of your battle with the Virak has reached us. You are brave warriors, and your human ally is especially commendable." Ethan felt a flush of pride at the compliment, but remained silent. He knew this moment wasn't about him. It was about forming alliances and ensuring mutual safety. Once the Zora was secured in the docking bay, the crew disembarked to meet the outpost leaders. Ethan accompanied Kale, feeling both curious and cautious as he stepped into the alien settlement. The interior was a marvel of engineering, with bioluminescent plants growing along the walls and waterfalls cascading down crystalline formations. It felt alive, pulsing with energy and purpose. In a large meeting hall, Kale addressed the gathered leaders, explaining their encounter with the Virak and their need for refuge. When he finished, one of the leaders, a tall, silver-skinned female named Cyrus, spoke up. "The Virak are a plague upon this galaxy," she said, her voice firm yet kind. "They prey on the weak and destroy without reason. Your fight against them proves your worthiness to join our alliance." Kale bowed slightly. "We seek not only shelter, but also cooperation. Together, we can stand against the Virak and protect those who cannot defend themselves." Syra turned her gaze to Ethan. "And one of Earth, will your people join us in this cause?" Ethan straightened, realizing the weight of the question. "I believe they will," he said confidently. "Humans value peace, but we also understand the importance of protecting ourselves and others from threats like the Virak. If you're willing to share knowledge and resources, I'm sure my commander will agree to an alliance." Syra smiled faintly. "Then let us begin planning. We have technology and strategies that may aid Earth, just as your courage and ingenuity can strengthen our ranks." Over the next several hours, discussions continued, with Ethan acting as a bridge between the humans and the aliens. Plans were made to send a delegation to Earth, carrying gifts of advanced technology and information about the Virak. In return, Earth would offer its military expertise and willingness to cooperate. As the meeting drew to a close, Kale approached Ethan privately. "You've done more than save my crew human. You've opened doors none of us thought possible. For that, you have my eternal gratitude." Ethan shook his head. "It wasn't just me. We all played a part. That's how we win, not alone, but together." Kale placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of deep respect. "Then let us continue to work together. Perhaps one day, humans and Zorthians will be brothers in arms." Before leaving the outpost, Ethan received a small crystalline device from Lyra. This contains data about the Virak, their weaknesses, tactics, and known locations. Take it back to your people. It may help prepare Earth for future encounters. Ethan accepted the gift solemnly. "Thank you, and thank you for trusting me enough to share this." With preparations complete, Ethan boarded the Falcon and prepared to depart. As he lifted off from the outpost, he glanced back at the Zorath, now docked safely among friends. Kale stood on the observation deck, raising a hand in farewell. Ethan returned the gesture before setting course for Earth. The journey home gave Ethan time to reflect. He had started this mission as a lone pilot responding to a distress signal, but he returned with something far greater in alliance, a promise of unity and the hope of a brighter future for both Earth and the galaxy. When the Falcon finally touched down at the Lunar Defense Outpost, Commander Rachel Morgan was waiting. She greeted Ethan with a mix of relief and curiosity. "Report," she said simply. Ethan handed her the crystalline device. "Ma'am, I think you'll want to see this. It's a chance to change everything for Earth and beyond." Morgan studied the device, her expression unreadable. "Explain." For the next hour, Ethan recounted his adventure, the battle with the Virak, the bravery of the Zorith crew, and the alliance forged with the outpost's inhabitants. By the time he finished, Morgan looked thoughtful. "This is unprecedented," she admitted. "But if what you say is true, it could redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. We'll review the data and decide our next steps." Ethan nodded. "Whatever happens, ma'am, we can't ignore this opportunity. The Virak are a threat to everyone. Working together gives us a fighting chance." Morgan regarded him with newfound respect. "You've done well, Captain Blake. Rest you've earned it." As Ethan walked away, he couldn't help but smile. What had started as a routine mission had become something extraordinary. You didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer alone in the cosmos. Together, they would face whatever came next and prevail. Ethan woke up slowly, his body heavy and sore. He was lying on a soft bed in what appeared to be the medical bay of the Zorith. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of machinery and the occasional beep of monitoring devices. Nira, the alien medic, stood nearby, checking readings on a glowing panel. When she noticed Ethan stirring, she turned to him with a gentle smile. "You're awake," she said, her telepathic voice calm and soothing. "How do you feel?" Ethan groaned as he sat up, rubbing his temples. His head throbbed, and his limbs felt stiff, but the overwhelming fatigue from earlier had subsided. "I've been better," he admitted. "How long was I out?" "Several hours," Nero replied. "Your exposure to radiation was severe, but your resilience is remarkable. With rest, you'll recover fully." Ethan nodded, though he couldn't shake the lingering sense of urgency. "What about the ship? Is everything stable?" Nero gestured toward the door. "Come, Kale will explain." With some effort, Ethan swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood. His knees wobbled slightly, but he steadied himself and followed Nira out of the medical bay. They walked through the corridors of the Zorith, which were noticeably calmer now. Crew members moved about their tasks with renewed focus, repairing damage and restoring systems. The air smelled cleaner, free of smoke and burning metal. It seemed the worst of the crisis had passed. They reached the central chamber, where Kale, Lyra, and Joran were gathered around the holographic display. When Ethan entered, Kale looked up and gave him a respectful nod. "Captain Blake," he said, "we owe you more than we can repay. Thanks to your bravery, the reactor is stable, and our life support systems are functioning again." Ethan shrugged modestly. "Just doing my job. But we're not out of the woods yet, are we?" Kale's expression turned serious. "No, we are not. While the immediate threat has passed, the Virak may return with reinforcements. We cannot stay here indefinitely. Our best chance is to reach a safe haven, a place where they won't find us." "And where is that?" Ethan asked. "There is a hidden outpost deep within this sector," Kale explained. "It belongs to an old alliance, a peaceful species who oppose the Virak. If we can make it there, we will be protected and perhaps gain allies to aid Earth against future threats." Ethan considered this. "How far is it?" 3 days' travel at full speed," Joran answered. "But our engines are still damaged. At our current capacity, it will take nearly a week." "That's too long," Ethan said firmly. "If the Virak come back. Before then, we're sitting ducks." Lyra stepped forward, holding a datapad. We've repaired most of the critical systems, but one component remains faulty, the plasma regulator in the engine core. Without it, we can't achieve maximum thrust. Replacing it would solve the problem, but we don't have a spare aboard. Ethan frowned. Can we fabricate one? It would require rare materials, Lyra replied. Materials we don't have access to here. Kale crossed his arms, thinking hard. There may be another way. A nearby moon contains deposits of the minerals we need. If someone could retrieve them, we could repair the engines and leave sooner. Ethan didn't hesitate. I'll go. Tell me what I'm looking for. Kale studied him for a moment, clearly conflicted about sending the human into danger again. The mission is risky. The moon's surface is unstable, and there are pockets of toxic gas. But time is running out, and you've proven yourself capable. Very well, we'll provide coordinates and equipment. Within the hour, Ethan was back in the Falcon, preparing for the extraction mission. Kale handed him a small device that resembled a scanner. This will locate the mineral deposits. Be cautious, some areas of the moon are prone to seismic activity. I'll be careful, Ethan promised. Let's get this done. He launched the Falcon from the Zorth and set course for the moon. As he approached, the barren landscape came into view, a desolate expanse of jagged rocks and deep craters. The atmosphere shimmered faintly, hinting at the presence of volatile gases. Ethan landed near the coordinates provided by Lyra and suited. Up for the excursion, stepping onto the moon's surface, Ethan activated the scanner. The device emitted a low hum, its screen lighting up with data. Following the signal, he trekked across the uneven terrain, dodging cracks and avoiding clouds of greenish gas that drifted lazily in the low-gravity dot. After 20 minutes of searching, the scanner began to beat rapidly. Ethan knelt beside a large rock formation and spotted veins of silvery blue ore glinting in the dim light. Using a handheld drill from his toolkit, he began extracting samples, careful not to trigger any instability in the ground. Suddenly, the earth beneath him trembled. Ethan froze, gripping the drill tightly as cracks spiderwebbed across the surface. A distant rumble grew louder, signaling an impending quake. He stuffed the collected ore into his pack and sprinted back toward the Falcon, leaping over widening fissures as chunks of rock tumbled down around him, reaching the ship just as the ground split open behind him. Ethan scrambled inside and sealed the hatch. Panting, he powered up the engines and lifted off, leaving the crumbling landscape far below. Back in space, he allowed himself a brief moment of relief before setting course for the Zorth. When he returned, the crew greeted him with gratitude. Lyra immediately took the ore to the engineering bay, working tirelessly to fashion a new plasma regulator. Meanwhile, Ethan rested briefly, his body still recovering from the strain of his recent ordeals. By the next morning, the repairs were complete. The engines roared to life, their power restored. Kale addressed the crew from the bridge, his voice filled with determination. We have endured much, but we are ready to move forward. To safety, to hope. Let us leave this place and find refuge among friends. As the Zorth prepared to jump to hyperspace, Ethan stood beside Kale, watching the stars streak past the viewport. For the first time since answering the distress call, he felt a glimmer of optimism. They had faced impossible odds and survived, not just because of skill or luck, but because they had worked together. And as the alien ship vanished into the depths of space, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, the Virak still lurked, a threat to both Earth and the Zorth alike. But now, humanity had allies, and Ethan had forged a bond that might one day save countless lives. The battle was over, but the relief was short-lived. Inside the Zorth, the crew worked quickly to assess the damage and tend to the wounded. Sparks still flew from overloaded circuits, and smoke lingered in the air, a reminder of how close they had come to destruction. Despite their victory, everyone knew they weren't out of danger yet. The ship was battered, its systems strained to their limits, and the Virak could return with reinforcements at any moment. Ethan docked the Falcon back in the alien ships. Bayan stepped out, his body aching from hours of intense combat. He removed his helmet and ran a hand through his sweat-drenched hair. The crew members who passed him nodded in gratitude, their glowing eyes reflecting both exhaustion and admiration. Ethan felt a pang of pride, but pushed it aside. He still had work to do. Kale approached him as he exited the docking bay. "Human," Kale said, his telepathic voice tinged with urgency. "We have won this round, but our situation remains dire. Our core systems are failing, and without repairs, we cannot sustain ourselves for long. We need your help once more." Ethan nodded, already anticipating what Kale would say next. "Tell me what you need. I'll do whatever I can." Kale gestured for Ethan to follow him. They walked briskly through the dimly lit corridors, stepping over fallen debris and dodging sparks from damaged panels. Along the way, Kale explained the situation. "Our main reactor is destabilizing. If it fails, the entire ship will shut down, including life support. Lyra has done all she can, but the problem requires someone willing to take great risk. Someone who can reach areas too dangerous for us." Ethan frowned. "What kind of risk?" Kale stopped in front of a sealed hatch marked with warning symbols. "Beyond this door lies the reactor chamber. Radiation levels are dangerously high. Normally, we use automated drones to make repairs, but they were destroyed during the battle. A living being must go inside and manually stabilize the reactor. It will be perilous." Ethan stared at the hatch, weighing his options. He didn't fully understand alien technology, but he trusted Kale enough to know that this wasn't a decision to be made lightly. Still, if he didn't act, the crew and possibly Earth would lose valuable allies. He glanced at Kale. "How much time do we have?" "Not long," Kale admitted. "Perhaps an hour before the reactor fails completely." Ethan took a deep breath. "All right. Give me whatever gear you've got to protect against radiation, and tell me what I need to do." Kale hesitated, clearly conflicted about asking a human to risk his life for their sake, but there was no other choice. "Thank you, Captain Blake. This sacrifice will not be forgotten." Minutes later, Ethan stood in front of the reactor chamber, clad in a bulky protective suit provided by the crew. The suit was designed for alien physiology, so it didn't fit perfectly, but it would have to do. In his hands, he held a toolkit filled with strange instruments and glowing tools. Lyra stood beside him, explaining the steps he needed to take. "Inside, you'll see a series of glowing conduits," she said, pointing to a diagram on a nearby screen. "Find the one pulsing red. It's the source of the instability. Use this tool to recalibrate the energy flow." She handed him a small device with prongs on one end. "Be careful. If you touch the wrong conduit, it could trigger a catastrophic overload." Ethan nodded, gripping the tool tightly. "Got it. Anything else?" Lyra hesitated. "Just don't stay in there longer than necessary. The radiation will overwhelm even the suit eventually." With that, the hatch slid open, revealing the reactor chamber beyond. Ethan stepped inside, the door ceiling shut behind him. The room was bathed in an eerie blue light, with thick cables snaking across the walls and ceiling. At the center of the chamber stood the reactor itself, a massive, pulsating orb of energy encased in a lattice of glowing conduits. The hum of power vibrated through the floor, making Ethan's teeth ache. He scanned the area, searching for the red pulsing conduit Lyra had described. Spotting it near the top of the reactor, he climbed the ladder attached to the wall. Each rung creaked under his weight, and the heat radiating from the reactor made sweat pour down his face despite the suit's cooling system. Reaching the conduit, Ethan examined it closely. The pulsing light was erratic, flickering faster and faster. He steadied himself and inserted the tool into the conduit's access port. Immediately, the reactor let out a low groan and the entire chamber trembled. Ethan gritted his teeth, focusing on the task at hand. The tool's display lit up with alien symbols, which he assumed indicated progress. Slowly, the pulsing began to stabilize. But then, something went wrong. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber, and a shower of sparks erupted from a nearby conduit. Ethan instinctively ducked, shielding his face as hot shards rained down around him. When he looked up, he saw that the damaged conduit was leaking energy, creating arcs of electricity that danced wildly across the walls. "Lyra!" Ethan shouted into his cums. "We've got a problem. One of the conduits is leaking." Her voice came back immediately, laced with panic. "You need to seal it before it causes a chain reaction. Use the containment patch in your toolkit." Ethan scrambled down the ladder, grabbing the patch from his belt. It was a flat, circular disc that glowed faintly when activated. He approached the leaking conduit cautiously, dodging stray bolts of energy. The heat was unbearable now, and his suit's alarms began blaring, warning him of critical radiation exposure. With a final burst of effort, Ethan slapped the patch onto the conduit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the leaking energy slowed, gradually stopping altogether. The reactor's hum steadied, and the chaotic light show faded. Ethan slumped against the wall, breathing heavily. His vision blurred, and his limbs felt like lead. He knew he couldn't stay in the chamber much longer. Summoning the last of his strength, he climbed back down the ladder and staggered toward the hatch. Outside, Kale and Lyra waited anxiously. When the hatch opened, they rushed to Ethan's side, helping him remove the cumbersome suit. His skin was pale, and dark circles ringed his eyes, but he managed a weak smile. "It's done," he rasped. "The reactor's stable for now." Kale placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, his expression filled with gratitude. "You have saved us, human. Words cannot express our debt to you." Ethan waved off the praise, too tired to speak. Lyra guided him to a nearby bench, where Nira appeared moments later with medical supplies. As she tended to him, Ethan closed his eyes, letting the exhaustion wash over him. For the first time since arriving on the Zorth, Ethan allowed himself to rest. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but for now, they had survived. And in doing so, he had forged a bond with these aliens, a bond that might one day save Earth itself. The sudden appearance of the Zorth caught the Virak completely off guard. Their sleek ships, already scattered from chasing Ethan through the asteroid field, now faced a double threat. Plasma bolts erupted from the Zorth's cannons, striking two of the Virak ships and sending them spiraling out of control. The remaining 4 ships tried to regroup, but their movements were clumsy and panicked. Ethan, seeing the alien ship re-enter the fight, felt a surge of relief. He looped his fighter craft around, weaving between asteroids as he joined the Zorth in the assault. "About time you showed up," he said over the communication channel. Though he wasn't sure if Kale could hear him, Kale did. His telepathic voice echoed faintly in Ethan's mind. "We are here. Together, we will drive them back." The combined efforts of the Falcon and the Zorth turned the tide of the battle. Ethan darted between the Virak ships, firing precise shots at their engines and weapon systems. Each hit sent sparks flying from their hulls, leaving them crippled and drifting. Meanwhile, the Zorth unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, its larger weapons capable of inflicting heavy damage. But the Virak were not about to give up easily. One of their ships broke away from the chaos and charged directly at the Zorth, clearly aiming to ram it. Ethan saw the danger immediately. "Hold on," he shouted, banking the Falcon sharply to intercept the attacker. He fired a missile, timing it perfectly so that it struck the Virak ship just before impact. The explosion rocked the area, sending debris flying in all directions. Ethan's ship shuddered from the shockwave, but he managed to stabilize it quickly. Back on the Zorth, Kale watched the scene unfold with growing admiration for the human pilot. "He fights like one of us," he murmured to Joran. "Perhaps we underestimated humans." Joran nodded, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying the battle. "His skill is unmatched. If we survive this, we should consider an alliance with Earth." While the majority of the Virak fleet was occupied with Ethan and the Zorth, one enemy ship slipped past unnoticed. It circled around to attack the Zorth from behind where its shields were weaker. Lyra, still in the engineering bay, noticed the threat on her sensors. "Captain," she called out urgently. "There's a Virak ship approaching our rear flank." Kale acted quickly. "Rotate the shield generators. Divert power to the aft section." The crew scrambled to follow his orders, rerouting energy to protect the vulnerable part of the ship. But the Virak ship was fast, and its plasma torpedoes struck before the shields could fully compensate. A loud crash reverberated through the Zorth as the impact shook the vessel violently. Lights flickered, and several consoles sparked dot in the paw. Medical Bay, Nira struggled to keep her balance as equipment toppled over. She grabbed onto a nearby table to steady herself, then rushed to check on the injured crew members who had been joltously awakened by the blast. Despite the chaos, she remained calm, tending to those in need with practiced efficiency. On the bridge, Kale clenched his jaw. "Report! What's the damage?" Joran scanned the readings. "Minor hull breach in Section C7. No critical systems affected, but we've lost some auxiliary power." "We can't afford another hit like that," Kale said grimly. Turning to the comms station, he reached out telepathically to Ethan. "Human, we've taken damage. Watch for stragglers. They're trying to flank us." Ethan acknowledged the warning. He adjusted his flight path, positioning himself closer to the Zorth to provide better cover. Sure enough, he spotted the rogue Virak ship attempting another sneak attack. This time, he didn't hesitate. Banking hard, he lined up a shot and fired a salvo of missiles. The projectiles streaked across space, finding their mark and tearing through the enemy ship's hull. It exploded in a brilliant flash, leaving nothing but fragments behind. Despite their teamwork, the battle was far from over. 3 Virak ships remained operational, and they began coordinating their attacks more effectively. They formed a loose triangle around the Zorth, bombarding it with relentless plasma fire. Even with the shields holding strong, the strain on the system was evident. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and warning alarms blared throughout the ship. Lyra worked tirelessly to reinforce the shields, sweat beading on her forehead. "I'm doing what I can, Captain, but the generators are overheating," she shouted over the noise. Kale knew they couldn't sustain this level of punishment for much longer. "Joran, prepare to execute evasive maneuvers. We need to break free from their trap." "Aye, Captain," Joran replied, his fingers flying over the navigation controls. He plotted a risky course through the densest part of the asteroid field, hoping the tight spaces would force the Virak to break formation. With a nod from Kale, he initiated the maneuver. The Zorth surged forward, its engines roaring as it zigzagged between massive rocks. The Virak ships followed, but their larger size made it difficult for them to navigate the narrow gaps. One ship clipped the edge of an asteroid, spinning wildly out of control before colliding with another rock and exploding. The remaining 2 ships pressed on, undeterred. Ethan stayed close, using the Falcon S agility to harass the pursuers. He fired repeatedly, targeting their weapons arrays and forcing them to focus on him instead of the Zorth. His small ship danced through the chaos, narrowly avoiding collisions and retaliatory fire. Inside the Zorth, the tension was palpable. Every crew member knew they were running out of options. If the Virak managed to disable their engines or breach the hull again, it would be the end. Finally, after what felt like hours, Lyra let out a triumphant cry. "Shields are stable. Engines are at full capacity." Kale allowed himself a brief moment of hope. "Good work, everyone. Now, let's finish this." With renewed confidence, the Zorth turned to face its attackers head-on. Its cannons roared to life, unleashing a devastating volley of plasma bolts. Caught off guard by the sudden counterattack, one of the Virak ships was obliterated instantly. The last remaining ship hesitated, clearly unsure whether to continue the fight or retreat. Ethan seized the opportunity. He swooped in behind the final Virak ship, firing everything he had left. The concentrated assault overwhelmed its defenses, and moments later, it too exploded in a fiery burst. For a moment, there was silence. The only sound was the faint hum of the Zorth S engines and the distant drift of asteroid fragments. Ethan exhaled deeply, his hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline rush. On the bridge of the Zorth, Kale and his crew exchanged weary but relieved smiles. "It's over," Kale said softly, almost to himself. Then, louder, he added, "We've survived." Ethan guided the Falcon back toward the Zorth, his heart still racing. As he approached the alien ship, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Against overwhelming odds, they had worked together and emerged victorious. For the first time since receiving the distress signal, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this mission would have a happy ending. With the power core stabilized, Ethan and Lyra returned to the central chamber where Kale and Jor were waiting. The mood was tense, but slightly more hopeful now that one critical system was back online. Still, everyone knew the danger wasn't over. The Veyrak could return at any moment, and the Zorth was far from ready to face another attack. Kale greeted them as they entered. "The core is stable?" he asked, his telepathic voice calmer now. "Yes," Lyra replied. "But we're not out of trouble. Yet, we still need to repair the shields and engines. And we have no idea when the Veyrak will strike again." Ethan nodded. "We need a plan. If they come back, we can't just sit here and wait for them to destroy us. We have to be ready." Joran stepped forward, pointing to the holographic display. "The Veyrak are predictable in their tactics. They'll surround us first, cutting off escape routes. Then they'll bombard us with plasma torpedoes until our defenses collapse. Their goal is to disable us quickly so they can board and take whatever they want." Ethan studied the map on the display. "So we use that against them. What if we set up decoys? Fake signals or debris fields to make them think there's something valuable nearby, something worth attacking instead of us?" Kale tilted his head. Considering the idea, it could work. But creating such distractions would require time and resources we don't have. "We do," Lyra interjected. "There's an asteroid field not far from here. If we lure them into it, we can use the rocks as cover. It won't stop them completely, but it'll slow them down and give us a chance to fight back." Ethan liked the idea. "Good. I'll handle the flying and keep them distracted while you focus on repairs. Once your shields are back online, we'll stand a better chance of holding them off." Kale hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed. But we must act quickly. Every second counts." Over the next hour, the crew worked together with renewed energy. Lyra stayed in the engineering bay, patching up the damaged systems as fast as she could. Joran coordinated with Nira, the medic, to move the injured crew members to safer parts of the ship. Meanwhile, Ethan prepared the Falcon for action, stocking up on ammunition and running diagnostics on its weapon systems. When everything was ready, Ethan gathered the team in the central chamber one last time. "Here's the plan," he said, pointing to the hologram. "I'll fly the Falcon out ahead of the Zorth, drawing the Veyrak toward the asteroid field. While I'm doing that, you stay hidden behind the largest asteroids. Use the time to finish repairs and get your shields back up. When they follow me into the field, I'll hit them hard and fast. That should scatter them enough for you to escape or join the fight if you're ready." Kale looked at Ethan with gratitude. "You risk much for us, human." "Why?" Ethan shrugged. "Because no one deserves to die like this, not even strangers. Besides, helping you might mean helping Earth too. If the Veyrak are as dangerous as you say, we need to stop them before they come after us." Kale nodded solemnly. "Then let us not waste this opportunity. Go, Captain Blake. May fortune favor you." With that, Ethan climbed back into the Falcon. As the cockpit sealed shut, he took a deep breath and powered up the engines. The sleek fighter craft hummed to life, its thrusters glowing brightly as it prepared to launch. Through the viewport, Ethan watched the alien crew watching him, their glowing eyes filled with hope and fear. "All right," Ethan muttered to himself. "Time to show these Veyrak what happens when they mess with the wrong people." He guided the Falcon out of the docking bay and into open space. Ahead, The asteroid field loomed a chaotic jumble of rocks and debris drifting silently through the void. Ethan positioned himself near the edge of the field, keeping an eye on his scanners for any sign of the Virac. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Just as Ethan began to wonder if the Virac would ever return, his sensors lit up with multiple contacts. 6 ships appeared on the horizon, their sleek designs unmistakable. They moved in perfect formation, closing in on the Zorath S location. Ethan activated the communication system. "This is Captain Blake. Enemy ships incoming. Get to cover now." Inside the Zorath, Kale gave the order to retreat behind the largest asteroids. The massive alien vessel maneuvered carefully, disappearing from view just as the Virac arrived. Confused by the sudden disappearance of their target, the enemy ship slowed down, scanning the area. Ethan seized the moment. He throttled the Falcon forward, firing a burst of laser shots at the nearest Virac ship. The attack caught them off guard, forcing them to break formation and pursue him instead. Laughing under his breath, Ethan led them straight into the asteroid field. The Virac ships followed, weaving between the rocks with surprising agility. Their plasma torpedoes streaked past Ethan's ship, narrowly missing him as he dodged and rolled through the chaos. He fired back whenever he had a clear shot, aiming for their engines to cripple their mobility. One by one, the Virac ships fell into disarray, their disciplined formation crumbling under the relentless assault. Back inside the Zorath, the crew worked frantically. Lyra shouted instructions to her assistants as they rerouted power to the shield generators. Sparks flew from consoles as they patched damaged circuits, but progress was steady. Nira tended to the wounded, her hands moving deftly as she applied alien medicines to their injuries. Joran monitored the battle from the bridge, relaying updates to Kale. "The human is holding them off. His ship is faster and more agile than theirs. He's leading them deeper into the field." Kale clenched his fists, his expression torn between pride and worry. He fights bravely, but he cannot hold them forever. Tell Lyra to hurry. In the engineering bay, Lyra heard the urgency in Joran's voice. She pushed herself harder, ignoring the exhaustion creeping into her limbs. Finally, with a triumphant cry, she slammed her hand onto a control panel. The ship shuddered as the shields came online, enveloping the Zorath in a shimmering blue barrier. "It's done!" she called out. "Shields are active." On the bridge, Kale allowed himself a small smile. "Prepare to rejoin the fight," he ordered. "Let's show the Virac that we are not so easily defeated." As the Virac chased Ethan deeper into the asteroid field, they suddenly found themselves under fire from an unexpected direction. The Zorath emerged from hiding its repaired weapons. Blazing, plasma bolts streak outside the document. Let me know if you'd like me to continue refining or expanding any part of the story. Ethan approached the alien ship, the Zorath, cautiously. Its damaged hull loomed larger as he drew nearer, revealing more details of its intricate design. The surface was a mix of smooth panels and jagged edges, some parts glowing faintly with an eerie blue light, while others were dark and scorched. Pieces of debris floated around it, remnants of what must have been a fierce battle. Ethan's sensors confirmed that the ship was still operational, but barely holding together. He activated the communication system again. "This is Captain Ethan Blake. I'm coming aboard to assess the situation. Please guide me to your docking." "Bay," the telepathic voice returned, weaker this time. "Understood, human. Follow the lights we will activate for you." A series of faint blue lights flickered along the side of the Zorath, leading Ethan toward a large opening in the hull. He maneuvered the Falcon carefully, matching the rhythm of the blinking signals until he reached the docking bay. The massive doors slid open slowly, creaking as if they hadn't been used in a long time. Inside, the bay was dimly lit, filled with strange equipment and tools that looked both advanced and oddly organic. Ethan landed his craft gently and powered down the engines. Before stepping out, Ethan double-checked his gear. He strapped on his sidearm, adjusted his helmet, and grabbed the portable scanner to gather data about the environment. Taking a deep breath, he opened the cockpit and stepped onto the alien ship for the first time. The air inside was cool and carried a faint metallic smell. It felt heavier than Earth's atmosphere, making each step slightly more EFFORTFUL. As he walked toward the exit of the docking bay, three figures emerged from the shadows. They were tall and slender, their skin a pale silver color that shimmered faintly under the low lights. Their eyes glowed softly, giving them an otherworldly appearance. One of them stepped forward, a male with sharp features and a calm demeanor. His voice echoed in Ethan's mind once again. "I am Kale, captain of the Zorth. Thank you for answering our call, human." Ethan nodded, keeping his hand near his weapon just in case. "Captain Ethan Blake, I need to know what happened so I can." "Help!" Kale gestured for Ethan to follow him. "Come, we will explain everything." They led Ethan through narrow corridors lined with pulsating veins of light embedded in the walls. The entire ship seemed alive, almost breathing, as if it responded to their presence. Along the way, Ethan noticed signs of damaged cracked panels, exposed wires, and scorch marks from energy weapons. Occasionally, they passed other crew members who were tending to repairs or caring for injured comrades. Some gave Ethan curious glances, while others ignored him entirely. They arrived at a central chamber where a holographic display hovered above a circular table. Kale motioned for Ethan to stand beside him. Two others joined them, one female with delicate hands and bright green markings on her face, and another male with a scar running down his cheek. Kale introduced them as Lyra, the ship's engineer, and Joran, the navigator. "We are explorers," Kale began, his mental voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "Our mission was peaceful, to study new worlds and share knowledge with those we encountered, but the Virak found us. They are a warlike species, driven by greed and destruction. When they attack, they leave nothing behind." Ethan studied the hologram, which showed the Zorth surrounded by smaller, sleeker ships firing beams of energy. "How many Virak ships attacked you?" "6," Joran replied, his tone bitter. "We managed to destroy 2 before they overwhelmed us. Our weapons are not designed for combat. They are meant for defense only. Now, most of our systems are offline, and half our crew is injured." Lyra stepped forward, her expression anxious. "Without repairs, we won't last much longer. Even if the Virak don't return, the damage to our life support systems is critical. We need help." Ethan understood the gravity of the situation. These aliens weren't fighters. They were scientists and explorers caught in a deadly conflict. Despite their differences, he couldn't ignore the desperation in their voices. "Tell me what you need," he said firmly. "I'll do whatever I can to assist." Kale hesitated, then nodded. "Your arrival gives us hope, human. First, we need someone to protect us if the Virak return. Second, Lyra needs assistance repairing the core systems. And third, ... his voice faltered briefly. "We have wounded who require medical attention. Our medic, Nira, is doing her best, but she cannot handle all of them alone." Ethan considered the tasks ahead. Protecting the ship would be his primary responsibility, but he also needed to coordinate with the crew to maximize their chances of survival. "I'll take care of security," he said, "and I'll relay your request for medical aid back to my commander. In the meantime, let's focus on getting your systems back online." Lyra brightened slightly at his words. "If you can provide cover, I can work faster. The main power conduit is damaged, and without it, we can't restore full functionality to our shields or engines." Joran added, "The navigation array is also compromised. If we're forced to flee, we won't be able to plot a safe course." Ethan nodded. "One step at a time. Let's start with the power conduit. Lead the way, Lyra." As they made their way deeper into the ship, Ethan couldn't help but marvel at the technology around him. Everything seemed interconnected, functioning as part of a living organism rather than a machine. Yet, despite its complexity, the damage was obvious. Panels sparked erratically, and sections of the floor had collapsed, forcing them to detour frequently. When they reached the engineering bay, Lyra pointed to a large cylinder in the center of the room. Thick cables snaked out from it, connecting the various parts of the ship. Smoke drifted lazily from one section where a panel had been torn away. "This is the core," she explained. "It regulates energy flow throughout the ship. Without it, we're vulnerable." Ethan examined the damage closely. "What tools do you need? Can I help?" Lyra handed him a small device resembling a wrench, but with glowing tips. "Hold this steady while I recalibrate the energy flow. Be careful, the circuits are unstable." Ethan followed her instructions, bracing himself as sparks flew from the core. For several tense minutes they worked together, their movements synchronized despite the language barrier. Finally, the core hummed back to life, bathing the room in a soft blue glow. "It's working," Lyra exclaimed, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, human. This buys us time." But Ethan knew their reprieve might be short-lived. As he looked around the battered ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The Virak could return at any moment, and when they did, the Zorth and everyone aboard would depend on him to keep them safe. The darkness of space stretched endlessly, a vast ocean of stars and silence. On Earth's lunar defense outpost, Captain Ethan Blake sat in the cockpit of his fighter craft, the Falcon. His fingers drummed lightly on the control panel as he waited for his next assignment. The outpost was quiet today, with only the faint hum of machinery breaking the stillness. Ethan glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It had been 3 hours since his last patrol, and boredom was starting to creep in. Suddenly, a sharp beep cut through the silence. Ethan straightened up, his attention snapping to the communication console. A message blinked on the screen. Distress signal. He leaned forward, adjusting the frequency to get a clearer reception. At first, the transmission came through as static, broken, and fragmented. But then, words began to emerge from the noise. "Help ... under attack ... coordinates ... The voice was strange, not human. It sounded metallic yet fluid, like water flowing. Oversteel. Ethan frowned, trying to make sense of it. Whoever or whatever was sending this message was clearly in trouble. He quickly jotted down the coordinates displayed on the screen. Before he could act, the intercom in his cockpit crackled to life. "Ethan, report to command immediately," came the firm voice of Commander Rachel Morgan. Ethan didn't hesitate. He exited his ship and strode down the narrow corridors of the outpost toward the command center. Commander Morgan stood in front of a large monitor, her arms crossed. Her sharp eyes met Ethan's as he entered the room. "We've picked up a distress signal," she said without preamble. "It's coming from deep space beyond our usual patrol routes." Ethan nodded. "I intercepted it too, ma'am. It's not human." "I think it might be alien." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "Alien? Are you sure?" "I'm certain," Ethan replied. "The language is unrecognizable, but the coordinates are clear. They're asking for help." Morgan turned back to the monitor, studying the data scrolling across it. After a moment, she sighed. "This complicates things. If it's aliens, we don't know if they're friendly or hostile. But we can't ignore a call for help, especially if they're being attacked. This could be our chance to establish contact or defend ourselves if necessary." Ethan felt a spark of excitement mixed with apprehension. He had trained for years to handle situations like this, but nothing prepared him for the reality of encountering extraterrestrial life. Still, he knew what he had to do. "Let me go, ma'am," he said firmly. "I'll check it out. If they're in danger, I can provide assistance. And if they're hostile, I'll neutralize the threat." Morgan studied him for a moment, then gave a curt nod. "Permission granted. But remember, Ethan, your priority is to assess the situation and protect Earth's interests. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Understood?" "Understood, ma'am," Ethan replied. Within minutes, he was back in the Falcon, running pre-flight checks. The sleek fighter craft gleamed under the artificial lights of the hangar bay. Its engines roared to life as Ethan powered up the systems. He entered the coordinates into the navigation computer and initiated the launch sequence. As the bay doors opened, revealing the infinite void of space, Ethan took a deep breath. This was it, the mission he'd always dreamed of. The journey would take several hours, even with the Falcon S-Advanced propulsion system. Ethan settled into the pilot's seat, keeping one eye on the instruments and the other on the stars outside. The loneliness of space was something he had grown accustomed to, but tonight it felt heavier than usual. What awaited him at those coordinates? Would he find survivors? Or would he walk, or rather fly, into a trap? As the Falcon sped through the cosmos, Ethan replayed the garbled distress signal in his mind. The desperation in that voice was unmistakable. Whoever these beings were, they were fighting for their lives. He couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was more than just another routine rescue operation. Something about it felt important. Hours passed, and Ethan kept himself busy by reviewing tactical strategies and checking his weapon systems. Finally, the navigation computer alerted him that he was approaching the designated location. Slowing down, Ethan scanned the area ahead. At first, all he saw was emptiness, just more stars and drifting debris. Then, his sensors picked up something large and metallic. "There you are," Ethan muttered under his breath. He adjusted the ship's trajectory and moved closer. As the object came into view, his heart skipped a beat. It was a massive alien vessel, its surface scarred with burn marks and dents. The design was unlike anything he'd ever seen smooth. Organic curves blended seamlessly with angular structures, as if nature and technology had merged to create it. The ship floated silently, its lights flickering weakly. Ethan activated the communication system. "This is Captain Ethan Blake of Earth's Lunar Defense Fleet. I received your distress signal. Do you require assistance?" For a moment, there was no response. Just when Ethan thought the ship might be abandoned, a voice filled his cockpit. It wasn't spoken aloud. It seemed to come directly from his mind, echoing softly. "Human ... you have come." The voice was calm but tinged with urgency. "We are the Zorth. Our crew is injured, and our defenses are failing. We need your help." Ethan gripped the controls tightly, his pulse quickening. Telepathic communication. That was new. He steadied himself and responded aloud. "I'm here to assist. Can you tell me what happened?" The voice hesitated before answering. "We were ambushed by the Virak. They are relentless hunters, destroying any who cross their path. Please ... time is short." Ethan didn't waste another second. "Stay calm. I'll do everything I can to help." With that, he guided the Falcon closer to the damaged alien ship, preparing for whatever lay ahead.